Welcome, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin Portillo. I will be your moderator for today's webinar, where we will be discussing using social and behavior change to expand access, build trust, and meet the family planning needs of youth. Slide, please. Thank you. So I will start my camera so you can see me. Good morning. My name is Erin Portillo, as I mentioned. I'm a senior program officer working on the Breakthrough Action Project, which is USAID's flagship social and behavior change project. I also work a lot on the West Africa Breakthrough Action Project. I'm based with the Johns Hopkins Center for Communication program, and also I'd like to take a few moments to introduce you to our speakers whose voices you'll also be hearing today. Very first, Katherine Harbour, who will speak about findings from a recent and ongoing review of youth-focused digital reproductive health and family planning interventions. We'll also hear from Léopoldine Tossou, a young professional working with the Merci Mon Héros campaign, who will talk about using a discussion-based tool called Empathways to strengthen empathy for youth among family planning providers and among community members in Côte d'Ivoire. We'll also hear from Thon Okonlawan, the reproductive, maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health lead with Breakthrough Action Liberia, where the team is using existing Let's Talk About Sex reproductive health focused radio show episodes to host in-person discussions about reproductive health and family planning. Each of these presentations will explore the challenges that we face in youth social and behavior change programming regarding expanding access to family planning and reproductive health information and services, and the role that trust plays in this question of access. We'll also talk about how Breakthrough Action programs have tackled these challenges and what we have learned from these outcomes. A few logistical details: the Empathways session will remain in the main room so that we can continue to use the interpretation function. And we'll also be sharing recordings of today's roundtable, including all 3 breakout room sessions. And additionally, we will be providing a webinar recap document, both in English and in French, so you don't miss the highlights from today's roundtable, and to share with those afterwards who perhaps were not able to join us. Slide, please. As an overview of what you can expect today, following these opening remarks, we'll move into our breakout sessions of those presentations I've just described, and also noted in blue on your screen, for about 30 minutes. You should have selected your preferred breakout sessions at registration, and we will do our best to honor those choices. Following each presentation, there will also be some time for discussion before we return to the main session for report out. Finally, we'll conclude with closing remarks from Amy Uchello, the Senior Youth and Reproductive Health Technical Advisor with USAID. Once again, a reminder to please mute yourself when you're not speaking. Thank you so much. To allow all participants to hear the presenters and the remarks being made. Once again, welcome to all of our participants and also to each of our presenters today. And please give us a few moments while we assign you to breakout rooms. A window should pop up on your screen momentarily to direct you. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Again, this is Thon Okonlawan from Liberia. On the Breakthrough Action Project, I am representing the RMNCH plus N lead. So we're going to be walking through our youth activity when it relates to family planning and how the project have helped participants or beneficiaries to gain access and develop trust in their service provider. So let's begin with the overview of the project. As you all may know, Breakthrough Action is a USAID flagship integrated social and behavior change project. And the project timeline ran from 2020 April to will run from 2020 April to 2022 April. Our intervention areas, we are intervening into malaria, MNCH, FP, adolescent health, nutrition, global health security, and gender. And the partners you see below are those that we are working with in Liberia here. So the overview for our youth activity, it all started with a CoDesign Workshop, because whatever we got as a global document or as a project document, we try to contextualize it. So we had a co-design workshop with our beneficiary, few members of the youth from across 4 counties, and they met in Bon County, somewhere called Banga. Were able to sit and come up with ideas because we actually needed the ideas from the young people to see how we design an activity that could help to mitigate some of the issues that have been existing in Liberia when it comes to adolescent health. So there we were able to identify barriers and influencers that have impaired the success of family planning among young people. So some of the issues that came up was fear of being denied. That is a issue that cut across all the counties in Liberia. So young people are constantly kind of denied because when you appear to the facility and you say you want a family planning commodity, looking at your age, the service provider is kind of surprised why will a young child that age be involved into active sex. So that has kept young people away from the facility and has led them to get pregnant without planning the pregnancy or without having access to family planning commodity that will help them reduce their teenage pregnancy situation. We're also looking at the misconceptions and the myth, and they also spoke about limited knowledge when it comes to family planning. They talk about parental pressure, peer pressure, and then cultural practices that also led to them not accessing family planning commodity. So how did we begin our intervention? From what we discussed during the co-design workshop, we're able to come up with interventions that will work. So one of those interventions was the Adolescent Health Club. It's a club that is providing a safe space for young people to gather to discuss freely without any fear situations that are hampering their lives when it comes to reproductive health. So that space was developed, youth were recruited, and supervisors were recruited. So they meet on a weekly basis and they listen to this Let's Talk About Sex episodes that we adapted from a campaign that was done here by one organization called Population Services International. So they got several different issues, several different episodes of those messages that they meet weekly to discuss, ask questions freely, and the supervisor who could be a community health assistant, community health volunteer, a nurse, a midwife, a traditionally trained midwife, could provide answers, factual answers, because of the level of myths in the community. We wanted for somebody who had hands-on information to provide the necessary information that will erase their mindset. So they meet on a weekly basis. And then to have the information going out to the larger population, we're able to come up with other interventions that started with community awareness, radio programs, the social media component where we gather stories from young people that we put on social media and the radio that will inspire other young people to take actions. And who were we working with or who are we working with? We are working across all of the health structures, beginning with the community health assistance structure, which is a government structures that have been set in place to work with communities. So we're working with the community health assistants, community health volunteers, community health services supervisors, midwives, nurses, trained traditional midwives. We also have youth mentors that we work with. So the youth mentors have hands-on information and they go around, they lead campaign messages, they lead awareness and all of that across the counties. And then we have peer educators in schools. So we have peer educators. Some of the peer educators came out of the youth group that we established. So if we have an innovative young person in the group who is willing to go out and share the messages, to pick them up as peer educators, and they work in schools to talk to other young people about family planning, and then they are able to encourage other people to have access to the commodity. So after doing all of this, how has this helped to expand access to youth family planning and establish trust? So with the increased family planning messages that we have on all of the different medias have helped to increase the young people knowledge and reduce their fears from myths. Because, for an example, a young person will say, If you take family planning commodity, you could become infertile. Through all your life, you may not be able to have children. And in our society, having children is like a blessing. Everybody wants to have a child. So if you think you're going to be having a family plan, if you're going to be taking family planning commodity that you're not too sure of what the effect will be, and you are thinking that you might not have a child, you will not be able to take that commodity. So erasing that fear have brought about increased knowledge and provided them that opportunity to be able to choose which commodity will be best for them to take. And also working with the health system, because one thing that came out during that co-design workshop was the collaboration or that connect. There was a complete disconnect between the service providers and the youth. So bringing them together on board have helped to erase that fear of being denied the commodity in case they want to access it. And then parents now have information that have helped them, because traditionally they want to have grandchildren earlier. They want their young children to have grandchildren. So talking with them, providing them the information that will help their young people to grow up, go to school, and achieve their potential have helped them now to reduce that pressure on the young people, and helping the young people now to go freely to access the commodity as they desire. So that has been some of what we've been doing in the country when it comes to our family planning activity and the access and the trust establishment between providers and the youth. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Thon. Are there any questions from the participants about the information that Thon's shared with us? No questions. I could ask a question. So I see, Thon, and thank you for this presentation, and I'm excited about this approach. How, in what way have you been able to measure or confirm that that there is this increased knowledge and reduced fears, that there is this increase in trust that is occurring already? How have you been able to measure that? Is it through observation or other means?
Okay, so we've been working with our county health system, and in the county health system, we have this section that usually work with community to collect data. So data coming from the counties and the districts have been informing us of the number of youth that are currently turning out for their family planning commodity. That's one way we've been able to have information on that. Another way we've been able to have information on that is the success story that we are gathering from young people in the community. So our knowledge management person have been able to reach out to our community dwellers to get information from them on how they think they have made impact on their kids. And in other communities where we have obstacles in even breaking through, like for an example, we work in a community that is a Muslim community. And that community has been like, they have actually rejected the issue of family planning. So when we got there, the county advised us that this would not work in this community because the tradition will not permit. Even our staff there cannot have people to turn up unless they do it in secret. But then we went there, when we talked to the community dwellers, when we had engagement meetings, entry meetings, inception meetings, they were able to understand why. And so they embraced the idea. When we established a club, we established it for 15 young people. But now we have a club that has more than 35 membership. And the young people from that community have told us now that their parents are now accepting them to access the commodity. And the people who work in the family planning facilities have also told us that the young people are now turning out, and their parents are now even attending some of the meetings to understand why the young people are gathering there on a weekly basis. So the information is coming from all angles.
Great, thank you. Gunther, I see you've unmuted. Did you have a question as well?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, I'm getting you.
Oh, great. I'm Gunther Heydrich, a communication for development consultant, actually working with UNICEF in Cambodia. I really think for me, it's an important lesson from this presentation. If you want to really create people who are promoting change, you started within a kind of trusted space where young people come together within their youth organizations. It's a trusted space. They can exchange on everything that they need to know. They can create their capacity. They can strengthen their self-efficacy in this for a certain period of time. When they are kind of mature in these secured and trusted organizations, then they may be able to get out of it and to become these promoters within the broader community and becoming these proactive change agents. I think that's what I understood from your approach, and I congratulate this. I think it's a very, very good thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think that this is wonderful that the parents are now also beginning to interact with the adolescent health discussion groups. I think that there are a lot of great opportunities because so many parents, even if they want to talk to their children about these topics, what we found in our programs also is that sometimes they just don't know what to say, they don't know how to start, and they wish that there was somebody there to help them have these conversations. And so to be able to have this forum where parents can ask questions of healthcare providers. Providers can be resources who might be more accustomed to, responding to some of the questions that young people might have about reproductive health, about family planning, and also give the parents the opportunity to learn, because in many cases, at least our experience in many of our West Africa Breakthrough Action programs has been that parents, and in many cases, they didn't have someone there to have these conversations with them when they were growing up. And they don't have a model to replicate with their own children now. And so now to have this opportunity to overcome some of these barriers, to have these open discussions, that's really wonderful and interesting. I'm curious to hear also if you've had negative reactions within the groups and what kind of preparation goes into addressing negative remarks. For example, if a parent does come and they might still be resistant to the idea of a young person having access to family planning services, how is that handled? Are the providers prepared to address these kinds of remarks ahead of time? How is that handled?
So what we've been doing is that the supervisor for our clubs are also residents of the same communities where the young people are. So part of what they do is to reach out to parents who may try to resist it. So because, if it is coming from a child, and with our African tradition, the parents might feel this child is too young to tell me what I already know. So once a child has any issue of such nature, they're going to reach out to the supervisor and inform them. The supervisor has a responsibility to reach out to their parents, not to coerce them, but to sit on a table to discuss and give them information on some of the things that they have concern over. So that way, with the relationship working back and forth, they get to have that parents on board what we are doing. So sometimes a parent may be resistant to say, no, I don't want my child to be part of what you're doing, or I don't want my child to get on family planning. So that child is just going to reach out to the supervisor, and the supervisor now has a responsibility to convince that parents to a point that they can be able to. And that has happened for some time. And now, just some part of last week, a kid from one of the counties just informed us now that she's having an open communication with her father and telling him about some of the negative impacts of not getting involved with family planning and some of the positive impacts of getting on a family planning commodity as a young person. And the father is now getting to understand and appreciate it. But it's just the level of work that that supervisor will have to put into it.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And if I heard right, that was a father who was involved, and that was actually one of my other questions is, do you see the discussion groups as increasing access and to both young women and young men? Or is it primarily young women who are involved in the group from the adolescent side?
So what we did was we established a group into two different sections. So one of it is purely women and the other one is purely boys. So we did not mix the group. So we have the boys component and the girls component so that people will discuss openly, because you wouldn't know whether a girl from that community is having a relationship with a boy and they both of them being in one group may not be able to discuss freely. So we have the boys group and the girls group. We are involving all sides of the coins. We are involving parents, both mothers and fathers, and we are involving the young people, both girls and boys. But we are prioritizing more girls group because they are almost like the victim of what we're talking about.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there any other questions? I certainly don't want to be the only one posing questions. Katherine, Diana, who else do we have? Olivia, Riley, any other questions? Or any other experiences to share from your work on increasing access to family planning and reproductive health services for adolescents?
Sure. I had one question. I was curious about the peer education groups, and if you could speak a little bit more to, some of the activities they engaged in and the results that you saw from that piece.
So for our peer education group, we selected schools within a district that we are working with. Most of the schools we're working with are government schools. So in those schools, we selected young people who serve as peer educators. Then we provided some level of training for them. We're also able to provide some discussion guides. So the discussion guide, let's talk about sex episodes that we have. We were able to develop discussion guides for all of those episodes. And those same guides that we are using in the health clubs are also used as a discussion guide for our peer educators in school. So we work with the school authorities. They provided us a time and during the week that we can meet the young people, the peer educator can meet their peers to discuss based on the topics for that week. So they meet and discuss, and then they allow time for the young people to ask questions and they answer their questions. And we also provide some print materials in the form of brochures. Some of those brochures talk about the different family planning commodities and its effectiveness. So we divide the brochures on the students and provide them the opportunity to read it, and then can visit the health facility and make a choice on what commodity they feel will best suit them.
Thank you.
Anton, can you remind me how long these discussion groups have been active already?
So the discussion group have been active. This is the 5th month.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And have you made any course changes or any shifts?
Yes, we made some shifts because at first we did prepare 10 discussion guides. So coming to the close of the 10th week, we made additional guides, and those guides were not part of the let's talk about sex episodes, but they were extra guides that talked about some extra issues like social issues, menstrual issues, and other things, nutritional issues, malaria issues that could all be discussed because health it cut across. Though we're talking about family planning, but there are some other information that we felt the young people could also need. So we added extra materials to what they already had. And they have been discussing that. Part of what have also worked for us well is that the young people are now able, they are having this facilitation skill. Because at a certain point, we decided to see if the supervisors who were kind of more professional could allow the young people to begin facilitating some of the sections and they guide them through that. Because we want to take these young people to work in the school as peer educators. Though we already have some, but we're trying to see at the close of this entire process, we want to select some of the young people that will work in other schools. So they are now beginning to facilitate some of the sessions, and reports coming from the county is telling us that yes, their facilitation skills is being built, and then most of them are now able to discuss openly among their peers, and based on that, other young people are taking advantage and also opting to facilitate some of these sections.
Very interesting. Thank you. Looks like we still have about 13 minutes, and I know that Thon, you'll be asked to give an overview of this discussion in the plenary, just a couple of minutes long overview. Are there any other next steps for the adolescent health discussion groups that you're planning over the course of the coming year?
Yes, there are other next steps. So currently, we are working on a transition plan because we don't want to close the clubs and then turn our back. We want to transition a group. So we find a way to see how we can link our groups to other maybe organizations or maybe with the communities and see how the communities can take the lead to continue the activity, not only with this set of youth, or maybe with new youth that they can be able to recruit from the community. So what we're doing now, this month we are going to be having a transition meeting with all of our community across the counties and districts. So we're going to be involving the community leadership and stakeholders to see what ideas they think we can use to transition the youth. Because part of what we did was to provide them materials that they can use. So we provided them radios, SD cards, discussion guides, and we are thinking if this set of materials can be used for new set of youth. And the community can provide some set of support for the supervisor to encourage them and motivate them to help teach their young children. So we are in the process of that transition period, and we're hoping at the end of the day, the community can take on for sustainability and continuity of the activity in their various towns. It's also going to be establishing new youth in new districts and new communities, and then we're going to follow, maybe not necessarily completed the full trend of what we did, but we're going to sit with the Ministry of Health. We're going to be planning for maybe 2 or 3 days of it where the Ministry of Health and county health authorities, we all can sit together to come up with a concept of what we think, based on lessons learned from what we are doing, we can use to scale up our activity in other communities and districts.
Very interesting. And so is that just for the discussion groups, or also, I believe earlier in your presentation, you mentioned social media. There were also social media components.
Yes, so we are not creating anything new. We are using the exact same approach, or maybe with new ideas that we can incorporate into what we already have. So we're still going to be continuing with our community engagement activity because to create the demand for service, we have to use all of the different mediums. Because if you rely on just the club or the youth group, you're not going to get that message going up to the wider population. So we're still going to be using all of the different approaches to be able to reach out to the last mile and have young people making the best choice to plan their family. So, but we want to sit with the Ministry of Health, the Family Health Division, and other stakeholders to look at some of what they have, how we can incorporate it into what we are doing to ensure to get the best results.
Wonderful, thank you. It looks like we still have about 10 minutes, and I was thinking, because we are a smaller group, to just go around the virtual table and just introduce ourselves and what we're working on, and perhaps what drew you to this group in particular. I've already introduced myself at the top of the webinar, so I'll cede the line to somebody else. I believe we know Thon as well. Olivia, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia Carlson. I'm a program officer working at CCP on Breakthrough Action with Aaron and Thon. I was asked to join to help take notes, but I am really interested in this topic and understanding more about how we can be supportive of young people and create an enabling environment for them to ask questions, learn about their bodies, and make informed decisions about family planning. So thrilled to be here, and it was great, Thon, to learn a little bit more about the work that your team is doing in Liberia. Maybe I'll pass it to Katherine.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Hi all. My name is Katherine Ponce. I actually work in philanthropy and don't have tons of work in what we're talking about today. I'm actually really just here to support the staff. And it's really nice learning a lot, since that's something I work within every day.
Thank you.
I can pass it over to Riley.
Hi, thanks so much, Thon, for your presentation. I'm actually a master's student at Hopkins in the same department that CCP is based in, so health, behavior, and society. And I'm just here to learn more about the work that Thon is doing in Liberia and how we can support youth around family planning and those health choices. Maybe I'll pass it back to Gunther.
Okay, thank you. I think I already introduced myself. So I'm a consultant on communication for development, and I'm always concerned about how it is possible to change behaviors and social norms. And so, I was particularly intrigued by the concept of supervisors in this presentation. I was asking myself, knowing adolescents and youth, and then looking at supervisors, do they like supervisors? What is the relationship among them and supervisors? And what is the profile of supervisors that are able to support them in their dynamics and not to kind of being perceived as, once again, adults are manipulating them in the way they want them to be. So there must be a special training or special preparation of these adolescent appropriate supervisors or companions to help them and to move forward positively. So how do you do that these supervisors are acting appropriately and that they are socially accepted by adolescents? That's my main concern. Thank you very much.
Okay, so just to provide our supervisor, the entire design of that activity came from the youth. So when we talked about, when they talk about establishing a club that could have them have that space to discuss, we were talking about, so who's going to lead this activity in a club? So they were like, in a community, we have our sport actors. There are people first. For an example, they do trust the community health assistants. The community health assistant, they told us they consider them as small doctors. These community health assistants were trained by the Ministry of Health, and they are also in the community providing services. So they provide family planning commodities.
So
we'll give it to them.
Connection is quite poor. I can't get anything.
So are you getting me now? Hello?
Yes, I got you. Yeah.
Okay, so like I was saying, the youth were the ones told us that there are people in the community that they do trust. So they trust their community health assistants, which they consider as their community health doctors, because those community health assistants also get drugs from the Ministry of Health that they do administer in the community, like family planning commodities. They do give it out to people who are interested. So, and they usually will hire themselves to go to the community health assistant for their commodities if they need it. So they told us that they trusted them. So people that they told us they trusted to work with them are people that the community selected, because the selection was based on criteria. So it was the community that selected them. And then they got training from Breakthrough Action and the Ministry of Health. So they were trained, and the issue of biases and all of that, we spoke on it, and they were able to grab the idea. And then part of what they told us was if they are working.
We lost connection.
Yeah, Thon, we've lost you again. Maybe while we wait, I think we haven't yet met virtually Diana, who's also on the line.
Hi, everyone. Diana. Thank you, Thon, for a very informative presentation. I just recently finished my graduate studies, and this is a topic that I was very much interested in. And I was also interested in learning about the different roles played by practitioners, midwives, and the community as a whole. And when discussing youth family planning, I'm always very much interested in the cultural aspect and the cultural norms and what is expected and how that plays a role in access.
Hello, are you getting me now? I hope I'm clear.
And thank you, Diana, for that introduction. Yes, Thon, now there's a little bit of feedback on your microphone, but the connection itself seems better.
So for the cultural norm, we try to see how we meet parents exclusively to talk to them. That's part of our strategy, or youth exclusively. So we don't bring parents and the children together to discuss the family planning issue, except maybe where we are having a meeting and somebody's staying to listen. Well, if it is parents, it's going to be all parents, where parents will be able to tell our people in the community the real issues, what they think, what are their fears, traditionally what they feel. And then the person who will be leading that session will be able to provide them information that they can use. So culturally, we try to meet, we try to maintain a group in a way that if it's only going to be, it's going to be useful for the youth, so that people will have that opportunity to how they feel. And then looking at the cultural side, we also tell them family planning is not going to deny your kids from having children. It's not going to deny them of the number of children they want to have. All we try to do is how we can work with you all to help these young people to make the right decision. Because today, when their lives are improved, it's also going to be passed on to you. And then they tell us in some of those meetings, if you sit, maybe one day you're going to have an opportunity to come and listen to some of the parents. They will tell you, even us as parents, sometimes we talk to them. We try to see how we can advise them. But on the other side, they too have their own issue. They too want to explore. They want to learn new things. They want to have relationships. So it has been like that. At some point, the parents want grandchildren. At some point, they try to advise them. And then all of that. Sometimes they feel afraid to talk to them about family planning because they feel as they discuss it, then they are allowing them now to go and have access to it. And if they will have access to it, it means they're going to start having sex. If they will have sex, then now they're going to be knowledgeable to things that they don't want them to be knowledgeable. So the discussion can sometimes be interactive, and then information can be passed on based on a group and the level of what they will come out, and then they can be able to take decision to make the right choice.
Great. Thank you, Thon. We have about, oops, looks like we should be heading back to the plenary. Yeah, so go ahead and click Leave Breakout Room. You should have had something pop up on your screen, and that should put us back to plenary. Thanks. So as just mentioned, we'd like to take this opportunity, take a little bit of time to report out on what was discussed in each of the sessions. So I'll go around the table and invite each facilitator to give about a 2 or 3 minute overview of the more interesting points or the more robust discussion questions that you exchanged about. So perhaps first we can hear from Catherine Harbour and the Digital Youth Family Planning Review, and then from Leopoldine on Pathways, and finally from Thon. Catherine?
Okay, thank you. Well, we had a terrific discussion, a lot of great inputs. Some of the points that we touched on was what sort of some of the program experiences, particularly from the Center for Social and Behavior Change Communication, Mumbai in India, about experiences of developing content and trying to find content that would resonate. A particularly successful example that was shared was a film, Komal, 6 minutes animated, that was shared widely and got a lot of attention and reach. We also discussed how just being committed to a single site or trying to chase kind of likes is not the best approach. Rather, the content, generating content that's going to be appealing is helpful. And also budgeting appropriately so that those kind of, so that sites or content can be maintained, not just developed, but also maintained. One of the participants shared some experiences working with health workers in India, that they're forwarding. They don't create messages, but they do have so much contact with the intended audience. It's a very valuable resource for learning about them, and the importance of creating good content and making it available to the National Health Portal. We talked about building campaigns or building outreach that is meant to appeal to youth and also to their parents and their families, as well as providers, and encouraging parents and families and youth to talk together. We also had a final comment on that about if parents knew that their children were getting information from porn, they would probably be more motivated to engage with the content. We talked about building trust and building education on media skills and what sort of outreach might be available or appropriate to do to help youth discern what's good information, what's correct, trustworthy, and also how to be safe online. So thanks very much to all of the participants in our discussion.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine. That was a great overview. And I think, yeah, those considerations and the culture that exists in the virtual and digital space sometimes reflects, but sometimes is quite different from what we see at the community level and in real life, which perhaps is a nice segue over to Leopoldine, who gave an overview of a community-based and discussion-based guide called In Pathways, which aims to facilitate discussion and conversation between providers and young people to increase empathy among providers for young people's experiences concerning reproductive health and family planning, and also the use of a similar discussion guide between young people and community members. So over to you, Leopoldine.
Effectivement, donc on a parlé de l'expérience du pretest et de l'adaptation des pathways. Vous l'avez déjà bien défini pour faciliter l'empathie des personnes adultes donc vis-à-vis des jeunes et aussi aider les jeunes à avoir accès aux informations et aux services de planification familiale et de santé de la reproduction. Alors, durant la discussion, on a discuté sur comment s'assurer que les jeunes recherchent les informations sur la santé de la reproduction. Donc, on a parlé du fait que déjà les jeunes ont une difficulté à avoir conscience de leurs besoins en matière de santé de la reproduction. Donc, il fallait les aider à identifier ces besoins. Donc, on a pris l'exemple sur des cas qui revenaient de façon fréquente durant les discussions communautaires, donc où les parents, dans leurs interventions, disaient « tel jeune n'a pas le droit de penser à une question précise en matière de santé de la reproduction », alors que dans le scénario, on voyait que c'était un besoin du jeune. Donc, on y est, au fait, on va dire, le besoin au jeune là d'avoir, on y est au jeune le fait d'avoir le droit d'avoir, au fait, des besoins en matière de santé de la reproduction, de planification familiale. Donc, on a parlé de sources d'information, notamment sur le digital, avec la campagne Impact. Merci mon héros, donc, qui est sur Facebook, Twitter et Instagram. On a parlé aussi de la nécessité d'avoir une synergie d'action, donc, entre le niveau institutionnel, les prestataires et aussi la communauté. Donc, nous tous, avoir une synergie d'action pour permettre aux jeunes de pouvoir avoir accès aux informations et aux services de santé de la reproduction. Donc, on a aussi parlé du fait de l'importance de créer un cadre légal qui permet aux jeunes d'avoir accès, comme j'ai dit, à ces différents services, donc d'avoir des lois qui régissent, on va dire, tout ce domaine-là, et aussi de créer des centres conviviaux aux jeunes, de telle sorte que lorsque le jeune décide de partir se renseigner ou de partir utiliser des méthodes de contraception, il faudrait qu'il puisse avoir tout un cadre, que ce soit au niveau des heures, au niveau des heures des services, et aussi au niveau de l'empathie, voilà, qui doit pouvoir voir, de l'empathie que le prestataire doit pouvoir avoir vis-à-vis de lui. On a parlé, comme on a dit, de la contribution de la communauté, donc la contribution, que ce soit des leaders religieux qui ont aussi un grand rôle à jouer dans nos communautés, donc de la contribution des parents. Et il y a eu une question qui est revenue, est-ce que lors de nos discussions, il nous est arrivé de confronter des personnes d'une même famille? Donc, ce qui a été dit, c'est que on n'a pas eu de cas où on a confronté des personnes d'une même famille, mais par contre, on a eu des discussions où on a eu un parent et sa fille, et lors d'une question qui demandait quelle est la relation que vous souhaitez avoir avec votre parent, la jeune fille a dit « je souhaiterais vraiment que mon père puisse s'impliquer dans notre éducation, donc on puisse avoir une relation plus proche avec nos parents. Et malheureusement, mon père est souvent occupé. » Donc, ce qu'on a dit, c'est que à la fin de l'utilisation de l'outil Impact, ce qu'on ne souhaiterait pas, c'est qu'on puisse venir avec un ton accusateur, donc que les parents puissent se sentir jugés. Et ça, c'est ce qu'on ne souhaite pas. Donc, on veut qu'à la fin de l'utilisation, à chaque fois que les gens finissent d'utiliser l'outil Impact, que ces personnes puissent se dire que les parents puissent comprendre les jeunes, mais que aussi le jeune puisse comprendre le parent. Donc, à ce père particulier, on lui a dit, on comprend très bien que au niveau des occupations, ça peut être difficile, mais il pourrait trouver des moments de qualité avec ses enfants où il pourrait passer soit en regardant la télé, soit dans la cuisine, et essayer de discuter avec eux pour pouvoir leur donner la bonne information en matière de santé de la reproduction et de planification familiale. Merci.
Great. Thank you so much for that thorough overview, Leopoldine. And you spoke again about these different reference groups that are so important and have such an impact on young people's lives, on whether or not their questions about reproductive health and family planning get answered. And sometimes indeed these same reference groups have their own questions and their own concerns. And it's so important to create, as you were saying, those opportunities for dialogue, those opportunities for exchange, for understanding one another's perspectives, to really open the floodgates for having, even if at a trickle at first, these conversations about these often sensitive topics, which again provides a nice bridge into Thon's activities and the discussion we had in the Liberia breakout room about the adolescent health discussion groups, which involve providers, parents, and young people as well. So Thon, over to you to give an overview of that discussion.
Thanks so much. So we're able to discuss our adolescent health activity, which is based on our Let's Talk About Sex activity. So we're able to discuss how that activity was initiated, how it has built young people understanding, young people and parents understanding about family planning commodities, how it has built relationship between the youth and the providers based on constant awareness. And then we're also able to talk about Now it has expanded access to family planning, and then it has also been able to build trust. So we were also able to talk about how our supervisors are working with the young people to ensure that the right messages are given and help to erase some of the myths that are around, and how our community health assistants are also reaching out through community awareness activity to provide the right information for parents so that parents can be able to have access to information and reduce the pressure on their young children and prevent them from accessing family planning commodities. So that was some of the things that we were able to discuss in our group. That is over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And another heartfelt thanks to all of our presenters and to our participants today for contributing to those discussions. Now, slide please. I'd like to hand the to pass the microphone over to Amy Uchello, who is at USAID's Office of Population and Reproductive Health, and is a senior youth and reproductive health technical advisor. Her technical expertise centers on adolescent sexual and reproductive health and rights, adolescent development, cross-sectoral youth programming, and meaningful adolescent and youth engagement. As a senior advisor, Ms. Uchello manages a global portfolio of youth programs offering technical guidance in these areas, as well as demand generation, service delivery, and quality of care, supported by expertise in measurement, evaluation, and research. On behalf of Breakthrough Action, thank you so much for joining us today, Amy, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Erin, and thank you to the participants. Thank you to those who were moderating each of the sessions. I only wish that I could have listened to all three at the same time, but I look forward to the notes as they come out in the future. So social behavior change is essential for family planning, reproductive health programming, and is particularly critical intervention with and for young people. We know that lifetime behaviors, both positive and negative, often originate in adolescence, where young people are formulating their identities, learning their likes and dislikes, conforming or challenging social and gender norms, all the while trying to form and maintain relationships. They're also in the midst of rapidly changing cognitive, emotional, and moral development. And this presents an incredible opportunity to guide young people towards healthy behaviors that they can take with them for a lifetime. But I don't need to convince you that behavior change initiatives are important in AYSRHR. You've already listened to this webinar. The presentations and roundtables today shared incredibly innovative ways of answering the questions posed at the start of the session on how to address persistent challenges in youth SBC programming and find ways to build trust between youth and adults. The multimedia campaign in Cote d'Ivoire aimed to increase provider empathy for young people by recognizing the divide in understanding that drives provider bias. By introducing a one-on-one relationship between youth and providers, that divide can close and trust can be built. Research told us that the digital space offers young people the anonymity and bias-free access they need to feel safe while waiting for more positive societal norms. Allowing young people to design the products and content in ways that align with their values, priorities, and experiences builds trust in these digital sources, and therein the SRH messaging that we are sharing. And the listening groups in Liberia allow young people to talk about challenging SRH topics in a safe environment and drive their peers towards trusted health resources. The unique AYS initiatives all start with the notion of building trust and prioritizing meaningful adolescent engagement as equal partners using platforms that they feel safe. Hopefully, the success of these programs can motivate trust as a core component to future youth SBC programming. I'd like to close the session with one more suggestion on how to catalyze trust by addressing the concept of second chances. SBC often requires repetition in multiple venues from multiple sources. What this repetition might inadvertently introduce to young people is that there's only one way to live, lest you be labeled bad, wrong, or broken. My hope for youth SBC is that we create a space for error, experimentation, and second chances. Mistakes are often our best teachers. And as much as we aim to mitigate the dangers posed by those mistakes, we also do not want to exclude those youth who've already lived very adult lives in the contexts in which we work. Telling youth that behavior is fluid could introduce the concept of renewable opportunities, that grit, perseverance, and adaptation are highly valued, and that their life trajectory is not fixed. There are opportunities to turn your decisions and behaviors towards greater success, and most of all, it's never too late. Creating positive norms, expectations, and perceptions of youth is an evidence-based positive youth development approach, and it's our role to create an environment that allows young people to rebound and realign and convey that our messages are not about judgment, but about hope. Only when young people feel accepted can they trust our programs and messages. I want to thank you for letting me, indulging me in this last word. I am grateful for all of the participants, the organizers, and thank you so much for joining this webinar, and keep an eye out for the materials as they come from the team going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amy. I love that concept of a second chance. And I think that's something that everyone can keep front of mind. And that's something that we also try and figure into our programs, especially through the Merci Mon Euro campaign, is really, if you try once as a parent, even if you have an uncomfortable conversation with your child and it doesn't go so well, it's okay. Try again, continue, and also give those same second chances and that same grace to young people in your life as well. And I love that idea. I think it's such an important concept to keep in mind, especially in this realm of programs and interventions that we're working on. Thank you so much for those closing remarks. And another round of thanks to each of our presenters today, and to all of the participants who contributed to the conversations and who joined us. Thank you so much. And we'll be sharing and you'll have a poll popping up on your screen right now. Thank you so much, Marcella. And so if you wouldn't mind describing your workplace and participating in that poll as soon as possible and before you leave the session today. Otherwise, thank you and bonne continuation. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.